Well, howdy, folks, and welcome back to another episode of Follow the Leader. I'm your host, Lee Larson, and boy, are you guys gonna like this one today. I brought in two amazing veteran women with me today. We have Angela, Naomi, and Shae Diehl. Welcome. Angela, Shae, welcome.
Thanks for having us. I'm excited.
Very glad to
Absolutely.
be here.
Folks, both Shae and Angela served in the Navy. They have a mix of active and reserve time, different roles, different ranks. But where they came together, it was on admins on the Facebook page group Combat Coven. Y'all folks know I love talking about religion and military and politics around here, and the military is a really unique situation in that it's a multi-faith environment and it's secular, but it's also the least human place to work. You are a tool of the U.S. military. And so expressions of faith are just, they're tricky, and they've always been tricky in the U.S. military when we look at U.S. military history. So today I want to talk about Combat Coven, and I want to start with you, Angela. What is Combat Coven? Where did the idea come from? And who's a part of it?
Okay, so funny enough, it came about because there is another military group, as there's multiple ones all over Facebook. And, in one of the groups, a young lady had asked, hey, does anybody do a tarot reading? So there were some people commenting like, oh, I can refer you to so-and-so, whatever. But then it just started this influx of the Christian women in the group. And this group is all military. There's no spouses. So active duty, veterans, reserves, National Guard, you name it. And it just turned into ugliness in the comments that was so anti getting a tarot reading. The admin of the group had to jump in and settle it down. I'm in there just like battling people left and right. And then I was like, you want to something? Forget it. We're going to make our own group. And, I got a strong background in digital marketing. So I went and threw this group together. It didn't even have a name at first. And it was honestly like a religious underground railroad. We were just smuggling people right on out that group and telling them, come on over here. And so then we got together, some of the first people in the group. And as a matter of fact, the admin team, we have people who are of various non-Abrahamic faith religions who are all just like, hey, we'll help get it together. And then we voted on a name, and Combat Coven kind of fit because we wanted to keep that military vibe going, but also wanted a community that was for everybody.
Absolutely. And Shae, what about you? What drew you to the group?
So I was actually in that initial thread. I had just started my non-Abrahamic religion journey. Let's see, this went down, 2020? So I had just started maybe 2018, 2019, somewhere in there. It was around the time that my husband and I had made our first big move since I had left the military. And I remember reading through some of these thinking like, there is a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of misinformation about what other religions do, and honestly, like how similar they can be to modern Christianity. And so, Angela and I would text back and forth, like, what is happening? Hey, what do you practice? Well, I practice this. And so, like, she and I kind of hit it off really well and really quickly. And I mean, as she said, the rest of it was, I would say, like a good 90% her idea. I was just there to, like, super cheerlead, like, yes, let's do this. This is a great idea. And, the rest, as they say, is history.
And how many groups or how many people are part of it now?
We're actually close to 500, which
Mm-hmm.
is amazing. Your post brought in probably a good, like, maybe 10 to 15. And then that's when I realized how many people we had built prior to like putting it on threads under your post. So that's pretty darn good considering we don't yell and scream, oh, we have this group. We're just kind of quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think a lot of people are. Is the group currently, Shae, is it open to military spouse and family, or is it just service member?
As of right now, it is just for service members. I think there is an obvious need for some, like a place for people who are not practicing modern Christianity or religions that aren't widely practiced in the military, there has been a real need for some kind of community to establish camaraderie in the other section.
Well, and I think I think it's completely fine to have separate spaces and have to have joint spaces too. And I was gonna talk about that because the fact that it's only service members does kind of add that sense of bond of like we are all struggling under or finding our way or whatever that looks like. Particularly because, as I mentioned, like the military is a very cold place. Like it wants you to be a machine, clock in, clock out, get out, um, and then you're as the whole job is there's a lot of ethical things we have to wrestle with, and whether it's who we bomb or like who we go to war with or what we do, there's just so it's fascinating to me how challenging or how many challenges the chaplains or military has made in general to um, stifle non-Abrahamic faiths when overwhelmingly even civilian life. Most it's something like a good 40% don't identify with a specific religion anymore, and so when you have your combat coven, and this goes back to Angela, you brought up tarot cards. Do y'all do any sort of tarot readings, or have y'all what kind of talk about what the conversations look like over there?
So initially, a lot of people were just able to breathe, just like, whew, and able to just introduce themselves and their practices. And I remember there was one young lady who she's from West Africa, and she is from a country that is like the home of voodoo. And so for her to be in the group and feel like, wow, I don't have to hide. And, my faith, my religion, I don't have to hide what my country is known for. And it's like, girl, you ain't got to hide here. Come on out, So a lot of those initial conversations were just, getting to know you, that kind of thing. And then, the first thing that I started making clear is that some of these practices are closed. So, watch how you talk in the group. Just be mindful that some things are just, we might have to take you privately and talk to you instead of posting in the group. The next thing that I started doing, and I started doing this recently, is helping people understand how to modify their practice for if you're in the barracks or you're on a ship, or maybe you're deployed somewhere where you can't have open flame to do candle work, or maybe you can't lug your crystals with you. So that kind of thing happens. I know I have done a couple of times. I've just done like a general reading for the group. Shae has done like candle vigils for people and things of that nature. So one thing that I'm going to start doing more and more is more education and more resources. And then also, again, teaching people that you don't have to have all of this elaborate stuff to get things done. It honestly, our ancestors, it doesn't matter how your ancestors got here. What's here on this land known as the United States is not the same as what's in Africa or what's in Europe. So your ancestors had to modify, and we have to do the same thing because you might not be in a space where you can get what you need. So right now it's educational, but it's still, people come in there and talk about their paranormal experiences, or they say they need something cleaned, or, something's off, and we'll handle it.
That's awesome. That is.
You mean to tell me I need a safety tag to charge my crystals?
Exactly.
And I'm sure there are some of the listeners that are just like, there's no way we got hippie crystal folks in the military, and I'm like, oh yeah. Do you know the kind of questions and things we're dealing with? Like, just keep us sane and let us do our jobs, right? Like, that's the heart of it. But that's it. I want to come back to the point of respect for the practices because they are sacred, and of course if someone is particularly really interested, they can find a book and go down that rabbit hole. But it does get very harmful to conduct spiritual conversations in groups like that for exactly that reason. You have people that are just naive and excited and can cause harm.
Yes. That is a really great way to put it, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, talk about Shay. How has faith, or if you can, how has your faith played a role in your military service and post military service?
So I actually grew up in the Methodist Church. I actually was born on reservation land in Oklahoma, so I'm a Cherokee citizen. You know, growing up in the Methodist Church, I like it was fine. I grew up in the church in like the late 90s and 2000s where you have like a resurgence of the satanic panic and you have everyone flocking their children back to churches again. Um, but you know, I never really felt profound movement there. And so when I get to my 20s and then I joined the Navy, I tried several different religions through boot camp, which is one of the things that I did really appreciate about boot camp is that I was able to explore other religions and see how they practiced and kind of see if something called to me more so than Christianity. I thought Buddhism was actually fascinating and I loved learning about Buddhism when I was in boot camp. And then I went through my military service. I wasn't religious really at all while I was on active duty. And so I get out of active duty service around 2016 and I tried going back to a Methodist church in San Diego and everyone was nice, but again it felt hollow to me. And so I was like, okay, well, I don't think that this is it for me anymore. Like, I do know that there has to be something more than just earth and like that's it. Like, there has to be something more. I just don't know what it is. And so we moved to Texas, actually, and I started looking into all of the other religions. I started hanging out with a lot of Army people in South Texas, and they would say things like Till Valhalla. And at the time, I didn't know what that meant. And so I was searching, like, okay, well, what does that mean? And that leads you down this rabbit hole of Norse pagan mythology. And then from there, you kind of, well, at least I did. I ended up kind of just bebopping around to different gods and goddesses, trying to see if any of them really struck to me. I ended up more recently, like the last 3 or 4 years, I've been more into just really grounding myself to the earth and being respectful to the earth. And if I can't figure out what's beyond, let me at least be locked into the present here. And so that's how I ended up doing a lot more earth worship. I started an actual garden everywhere I've lived, and that has helped me grow so much spiritually. It helps me to have more patience with my children and just with life in general. And being a military spouse, like, life gets so inundated with chaos. And for years and years, I was like, there's got to be somebody out there that I can relate my chaos to. And I actually did a tarot reading, I think it was back in July or August. And all signs led to the goddess Eris, who was the goddess of chaos and managing the world around you regardless of the chaos. And so more recently, I've started working with her, and I have noticed a change in my life in that I'm able to be more flexible and not necessarily trying to control the chaos, but grow with the chaos. And I think that is something that a lot of people can relate to, especially in regards to military life. Um, but that's been very helpful for me doing the tarot readings, candles, meditation. Um, I think that I've grown so much as a person just by following my own path instead of strictly adhering to what I was told in my childhood.
And you can't get much more simple and direct than working with the earth. Like, it's like right there.
Right. Yeah.
It's um it's our home. I
Absolutely.
I want to ask Angela the same question, but Shay, real quick though, you brought up Reservation Oklahoma and that you're Methodist. Where are you from in Oklahoma City?
So I grew up in a very, very, very small town called Wagner, Oklahoma. It kind of sits on the like part of the town lives or lives, geez, part of the town is on the Cherokee Nation reservation and part of it is not. And so growing up, I was extremely aware of a lot of the ideas and beliefs of the Cherokee Nation. So it's not too dissimilar to Christianity in that the Cherokee Nation believe that there is a creator, but the creator is neither male nor female. We do strongly adhere to acceptance of what most Native cultures will refer to as two-spirited people, which is our LGBTQ plus community. And more recently, the Cherokee Nation has started to really grow in their acceptance of the freedmen, the Cherokee Nation freedmen, who were formerly African American slaves who became Cherokee Nation citizens. And I think, seeing the tribe being able to be the example of all of that acceptance really gave me such a foundation for who I am as a person that modern Christianity didn't super fit with me. I think because too often we hear the stories over and over again of, well, you can't be homosexual and be a Christian, or you can't do this and be Christian, you can't do that and be Christian. But Cherokee Nation is kind of like, I mean, that's not what we think. Acceptance and love and respect is available to all.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for the clarity. I have a background with Oklahoma and Methodism and an indigenous. One of my best friends from seminary is an indigenous Methodist pastor, and he talks about that too, blending it, not blend, like just it's a lot to unpack, too,
It
like
is.
and deconstruct and
Mm-hmm.
and it's a very challenging position to be in, but it's also like you just get to think. You also you have the burden, but you also get the honor of being able to see things in different perspectives that
Mm-hmm.
I really think is going to save us in the next few years, y'all. Like we're gonna have to have to come up for air like every now and then and see
Oh,
things at a high
yes.
view.
Mm-hmm.
So, Angela, tell me about yeah, what about your faith journey, before, during, and after service?
So before, now I will say, unlike Shae, I was older when I joined the military. I joined when I was 30. That was in 2014. So prior to all of this, my this is actually kind of funny. My grandfather is he was a Baptist preacher in the Tidewater area of Virginia. He's very, very well known, Dr. Anderson, and he also would guest teach at Old Dominion University. He would come in and teach theology and all this stuff. So I grew up as a little kid, literally under the table, drawing or reading the encyclopedia that had Yiddish in the front of it. And I'm, learning Yiddish on my own as he's writing sermons and, has all of these other preachers at the house. And then, he ordained my father as a Baptist minister. So I grew up for a little bit of time at the Baptist church, and my dad's Army. He's an Army Ranger and, special operations, a lot of combat. And we end up, of course, if you're doing that, you're going to end up in Fayetteville, North Carolina at Fort Bragg. So we start going to the AME Zion Church, which is the African Methodist Episcopal Zion. There's also an AME, but really they're just cousins who had a beef way, way back in the day. And it was AME, and then they branched off to AME Zion, whatever. So we were at the AME Zion Church. And whenever I would visit my aunt and uncle, where I'm going to a Kojic, which is the Church of God in Christ. And they got a lot of energy at the Kojic church. They like to run around the church, hoot and holler. And, so I was always heavily in church, but I just didn't get it. I was like, why am I not behaving like my other kids? I wasn't even looking at the adults. I'm looking at my peers who were really into it and just enjoying it. I like the choir. I love to sing. They forgot to baptize me, so I didn't even get baptized. And, and then one morning it was like my mom just stopped waking us up for church. I still to this day, I've never asked her. I don't really care because I was just like, well, good. I don't have to pretend anymore. And then I went off to college, and my aunt and uncle's church is in the town I went to college in. And so I would sometimes go with them, but they were just so strict. The Kojic church can have like a lot of rules. And I liked the way things flowed, but I didn't like the rules. So I kind of was just like, I'm not going to go. But I've always been gifted. I've always been able to have prophetic dreams. I've always known that something was going to happen before it would happen. My sister even picked up on this when we were kids and would tell my mom, Angie knows something's going to happen because we were at school and she said the boy was going to fall off the monkey bars. The boy wasn't even on the monkey bars yet. And I said, that boy's going to fall. It climbs up. And next, you know, go boom, he just fell. And I was like, okay, do. I was one of those kids. And whenever my dad would take us to the Walden bookstore, I would always like grab a witchcraft book. This is like in middle school. I'd grab the witchcraft book and stick it in front of another book. And I'm reading that. And, you know, my friend's neighbor, his mom's a witch. And that was a term that, you know, we used then. And he knew how to read auras. And he would read our auras and he would start teaching us stuff. So I started learning from him. And then fast forward as the years went on, I was just like paying attention to things culturally and historically, mainly looking at my family. And the one question I asked myself, I said, self, yes, where's your family church? On both sides of the family, we can trace back on my dad's side of the family. We could trace back in North Carolina to the 1800s. We have no family church and we trace back to the same area. Where's the church? For most people, if you trace that far back, you have a family church. We don't have that in our family. Church is still kind of new. Yet I come from people who can see the dead, people who know how to make medicine, who know how to speak life into you and all of these other things. And so I was just like, well, you want to know something? I'm going to get on this thing called the internet and I'm going to figure it out. So in short, you know, the more I just grew in the practice, that is when I never had the term hoodoo. I didn't have the term, but I had all the other language because we are part Gullah Geechee. And we had all of these elements, but never had the term hoodoo. And fast forward even more, and I just got deeper into the practice and was like, I feel comfortable here. I feel very comfortable in hoodoo. And then I chuckle because the founder of the Church of God in Christ, somebody probably going to get mad at me, but I'm saying it anyways. Bishop Mason was a root worker. And most of the churches have his photo and they crop him from about maybe like from the upper rib cage up. It's, you know, well, more like down. It's cropped. You can't see the full table. The full picture, he has all his root work and stuff there. And it's very well documented. I've even come across through social media people whose great grandparents knew him and would host him when he would travel. And they're like, yeah, he was a root worker. So the Church of God in Christ, I said, no wonder it felt comfortable. And the only thing I didn't like was the rules and the Jesus kind of aspect to it. But they know how to conjure a move up in that church. So I like it. And it's because hoodoo hides in the Black church because of how the invisible institution from slavery, it hides. And, being in the military, get to boot camp, I was like, I want to get out the compartment. So somebody else was going to earth-centered services and I was just going to go to Baptist and just like masquerade as a Baptist. I know how to do that. And so they're like, hey, come with me. Let's just go to earth services because we knew each other from MEPS when we processed in. So I started going to earth-centered services just to get out the compartment. I felt very comfortable. And then I continued just to learn and get deeper. And then during the pandemic, my goodness gracious, I'm not sure how it started floating around the command that I was the person to talk to for certain things, but I had people coming to me how to stay grounded. I had somebody come with a situation I had to do a reading and a ritual for, and it worked out just fine. Don't mess with my peoples and that kind of thing. And I've just grown even more to the point now that, and also I will say I hid in the service the way, it's kind of like ironic that I'm in a practice that hid a lot. And in the service, I hid. Even if they came around for Ash Wednesday, put some ashes on my forehead. Cool. I don't need a witch hunt to begin. So while I was in, I was just always low key. But if somebody needed something or they asked something, I got you. Don't worry about it. And then so I got out of the Navy in 2021. And, I go straight into working on sets because I actually am an actress. And so I go into working on sets, on being crew and whatnot. And then when was that? 2024, I go to New York and that's when I meet my padrino, who is a practitioner of 21 divisions, which is Dominican voodoo. So I have done all, the steps towards things. And that's an interesting process. So I do have my eleke, which are the beads that I wear. And those are, you can buy them off Amazon. It don't mean anything, but they're usually strung together by the padrino or the madrina, which is the godfather or the godmother. And then there is a full ceremony. So I have been through my full ceremony to receive my eleke, and also through that. And then the next steps, if the Orisha are ready to talk, the Orisha will let you know which one is your mother or your father. And it was kind of a tussle between Yemaya and Oya, and it's Yemaya won that tussle. So it's Yemaya is my main Orisha, so I'm a daughter of Yemaya, and also kind of like a little niece of Oya. She was the other one, and that's a big commitment, to make. So I am fully immersed in the practice where you couldn't get me back to Christianity because honestly, they never had me. I never went to the altar to accept Christ. I was never baptized. And the deeper I got in this practice and the more I learned about my family history, I said, I think my ancestors probably just had enough of we don't come from church. Then all of a sudden, you modern people got into church and forgot we have such a strong legacy and history that I don't come from church people. So I've kind of like back to my roots. I'm the only one in the family that does this. Not the only gifted one though.
And I think about that. I mean, you've talked about ceremony and going through proper processes, which happen in faiths for all.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I go back to with earthbound faiths is that you don't need a book, you don't need a fancy chapel, you don't have to have all these certain there is such a heavy level of social control, as you point out with the Abrahamic faiths, that like a child can go out and begin to learn and be in relationship with the world around them, to learn their ancestors, to learn their spirits. It's the story of really like us, your family, ancestors, and going back. It's not a random person in the Middle East that 2,000 years ago. And I think there's like something so natural about what you're talking about. Have you seen, or actually, let's reword this question. This past year has been wild for the country, for the world, just a lot going on. As practitioners, Angela, I know that you just talked, so I'll start with Shae. What have you been feeling or hearing? Like, what is coming up for you as a practitioner? Really, it can be specifically about the military and Hegseth, or it can be larger. But how have you been sensing, feeling?
Personally, I've been feeling very heavy. Like, there's so much that I feel not, I don't want to say responsible for. I didn't vote for this. But there's a lot that I feel like I can still do. There's a lot that I feel like I'm not doing enough to make a better impact on things that are going on. And a lot of that is, it's honestly, it's personal, and I know that I do it to myself. I can't do as much as I would want to as far as like policy goes. I've got 2 children. I'm a stay-at-home mother to the 2 of them. My husband's still active duty. And so it's 9 times out of 10, it's just me and the kids, and I can't exactly bring them to a protest with me, especially not with the way protests tend to go. That's not someplace that I'm going to bring my children to. But what I can do is what I had just talked about, in that I found a deity to work with to help me kind of put words and emotions into the chaos that I'm observing, and find ways that I can be helpful and be beneficial. I can do things like protection spells. I can do things like freezer spells, and those are small little things that can actually that I have found have a very profound impact. I'm not too proud to say that I have put hexes and curses on people who I think deeply deserve it, who I think are deeply evil people. And that's not to say that I don't trust the universe or the deities to do their work. This is just my way of being specific and asking them to, hey, can you just like get this right here, specifically this for this reason. And I will say the times that I've had to do that have felt to me out of complete necessity. And I have noticed that there has been at least some edge taken off to most of the bigger aspects of things, if that makes any sense. And if for no other reason than to give me some semblance of a feeling of control, like I can't go out and go knock on Pete Hegseth's door and say, hey, could you stop sucking a little bit? I can't do that. But what I can do is light several candles, light some incense, and I can do some white sage every now and again when I feel like the energy in my house is just too heavy. Because, like I said, I do have 2 kids that I need to care for, and their energy is also important to me, too. So I have to do what I can to not only protect myself and my husband and fellow service members, but the responsibility that I have to 2 small humans who just live their lives on goldfish and chicken nuggets. But their innocence deserves to be preserved too. And so, within the scope of things, of doing what I can with what I've got, more like what Angela said, sometimes you don't always have the space to haul in your crystals or to do candle magic, but you do what you can with what you have.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
And Angela, back to you. How have you been navigating this past year specifically? My goodness, do we have a dark energy coming through, specifically with Pete Hegseth and his emphasis on a very specific type of Christian theology that a lot of Christians themselves are not happy with. And I can only imagine that, so Angela, you've gone through the ceremonies, you're a practitioner. How do you as a leader and practitioner see the past year spiritually?
It's actually, I hate to say it's funny, but it's one of those type things, being a Black woman, we're kind of like, we've seen this before. Y'all, everybody else is just catching up. It's usually my people getting the bombs dropped. Some people, I can't believe we're bombed. We have bombed, the MOVE movement, the, Black Wall Street, Rosewood. I mean, they've had massacres and bombs. So some of this stuff for my people in like in the African traditional religions, we're kind of like, we've been trying to tell y'all this. But then on the flip side of that, because, there's still that energetic stuff, those of us, and specifically speaking of myself, because I did not get into Christianity as, Lord, we lift your name on high. I want to be your follower. I got into it studying because my grandfather was very big on you need to learn. And so at one point in my life, I did go down the rabbit holes of learning Christianity. And I will say that nothing, and I call him the Secretary of Cocktails, there is nothing in his Christian theology that I've not heard before. When you actually get out of the churches that are, wear your jeans, come as you are, we're woohoo, light show churches, we're going to bring a camel in here. When you get away from them and you go back to these churches that when them ships came over, what those people were practicing, what they were believing, and what it started to develop as, this is what they believe. And I think what's so jarring and also causing this almost cognitive dissonance and shaking a lot of people awake now is it's one thing to hear every Sunday morning that in order to usher in the second coming of Christ and, to bring revelations and the fire next time, that you have to have what's going on there. It's one thing to hear that from the pulpit and then go right into a song and then, go eat some lunch afterwards versus you're sitting here watching the death, doom, and destruction on television, and you're wondering, how could they do that? And then you pause for a moment and go, well, daggone, I grew up in a church that preached this. Yeah. And some of those people took that and ran with it, and they brought it into institutions like the military. So what I have been telling people is, first and foremost, you got to remember that again, there's power in the tongue, life and death in the tongue. And you have to remember that just as powerful as whoever you are praying to is, so is whoever they're praying to. There are schools of thought within Christianity and people who've left Christianity that the God of the Old Testament is a God of war. Okay. So if they are praying to a God of war, what you think is fixing to happen? They're going to win that war. There are practices till this day I will say that plenty of African traditional religions still practice blood sacrifice. You're going to grab a chicken, you're going to grab, whatever, and not people, being clear, not people, but definitely a chicken, a pigeon. It's going to happen. A goat, a pig, and the blood sacrifice is needed for things that are stronger. And so when I see this stuff from a spiritual lens and not coming from a military eyeball lens, what I see from a spiritual lens is they're blood sacrificing to the God they believe in. And that's a lot to fight spiritually. So like how Shae was saying, I can't save the world spiritually, but what I can do is say, you need to turn that TV off and let me teach you how to ground yourself. You need to protect your energy, because even through a television, that energy can come through. Some of these people who are sitting in these seats running their mouths, saying whatever, they believe it. They're bringing that energy into your house. So turn off the news, turn it off. Be careful of certain people on social media who are doing nothing but stirring the pot. They're stirring that energy. And definitely heavy on the protection work, because those who are still active duty, they're not going to be able to say, I don't feel like going to Iran today. I don't want to go to Iran. I don't want to go over there. I don't want to go there. I don't want to go to Jordan. I don't want to go to Israel. They can't say that. So what they need to understand, and we'll be posting more about this in the group, is how to protect yourself spiritually when you don't have a choice but to go over there, and how to understand spiritually that love and light, that works. I will say I am not a new age practitioner. It ain't much love and light over here. I don't do all that. Oh my gosh, love, light, peace. No, you want to battle? I got plenty of spirits we call on for battle. We have no problem. Again, we did not get out of slavery because we decided to just go, let us free. We fought. We fought. Nat Turner did not, snap his fingers 3 times and say, I wish me luck. Let's go. There were rituals done for that slave rebellion. When Toussaint Louverture, went through Haiti, I believe that's Toussaint, for that revolution in Haiti, there was rituals done. There was blood that was shed. So I'm making it clear, I'm not a love and light practitioner. I am if you want to battle, if you want to bring the smoke, then we're going to conjure and we're going to bring the smoke too. But we're also going to bring a lot of protection, because we're not going to have a lot of casualties over on my team. If you come for me and mine, you are not going to have a good day. We're going to have the good day. So protection work it's big. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't see this coming. I saw it coming. And I was like, get ready, hold on to your butts and spiritually cover yourself, because it's like that TV show, American Gods. The new gods are in our hands on our cell phone. And that can impact you in a way that you will never believe. So that's why we have to remember, stay away from people who are stirring the pot. It is A-okay to just watch puppy dog and cat videos all day. It's fine. It's fine. You don't have to stay in the know, because some of this is spiritually above some practitioners' pay grades. And it's some heavy stuff spiritually. So I say mainly protect yourself, because when I tell you these people are serving a God that is not trying to, and come as you are, wear your jeans to church and let's hold hands. They're not serving a God like that. Not at all. So protect yourselves.
Well, and like you said,
Preach up in here today.
Oh yeah. Well, I was just thinking about how that's exactly, they're praying to an Old Testament God of war. And the term death cult has been floating around, I've seen online, to describe Christian nationalists. Can either one of you describe or define what death cult means for the audience?
The way I see that, I will tell you this. The way I see death cult with Christian nationalists is that when you look at the Bible, there's a lot of death up in there. There's a lot of people who did not mind dying for, they didn't mind dying for it. They didn't mind dying for their beliefs. There's a lot of war that's in there. And I do feel that when you get looped up in Christian nationalism specifically, you start losing the joy. You really, really start losing that joy, and you start turning it into, pick up the blood-stained banner. I grew up one in churches that used to say that, pick up the blood-stained banner. If any man come after me, let him deny himself. Pick up, let's march, march, march. I'm a soldier in the army of the Lord. If you get too lost in that, sometimes I liken it to what I see sometimes in the military out of the special forces community, that when they get too deep and they forget you're not always at battle and you're not always at war. Put the gun down. Put the gun down. And so I think when people get up into that Christian nationalism, even if it's not a physical death of them ushering us into things that we're seeing right now, it's also just a spiritual death, and the death of, in my opinion, the healthy family unit starts to die. I have so many friends that I've known growing up who are now comfortable breaking away from what they were raised in and speaking out about it and talking about it. And I'm realizing that they don't even talk to their family members anymore, because the family members, they're these strict evangelicals and Christian nationalists. And the, it's that kind of death too. And then I look at it as a country as a whole. You're killing a beautiful country. This is, first of all, we're huge. It's a massive chunk of land, still smaller than other nations, but it's a place where you can come here and be nothing and become something. And that something doesn't matter if you are, going into the entertainment industry, or you go into politics, or you invent something, or you become a doctor or a teacher. You can become something here. And I feel like we're losing the things that and it breaks my heart, because we're losing the things that make that song, oh, beautiful for spacious skies, oh, for amber waves of green. We're losing what made that song so beautiful. And that's when I hear death cult, I see physical death, spiritual death, and the death of a nation that actually could have beautiful railroads and trees and gardens and technology and all that stuff. You're killing it.
It's a great point. I had a conversation with someone today. I was like, it's so wild to vote for the conditions that a lot of these Christian nationalists did. Then from those conditions, like, you now need Jesus to come save you. And I was like, or you could just vote towards a society where Jesus could come back and high five everyone.
Yes.
Like, why do we need Jesus to save? Like, what if he came back and was like, hey, like, look at these well-funded schools and hospitals and public lands.
You guys actually did what I told you to do. Good job.
Like, your women are okay, your children are okay, the immigrants okay, like the strangers, everyone is okay. That's what I wanted.
Put all this into healthcare, and now everyone is well.
Yeah.
Like, they're doing ceremonies at national and state parks with women and children. It's like yes,
That'd be great.
But I know that we're kind of getting towards the end. I wanted to ask about some things that we hadn't covered quite yet, and that was specifically on astrology or numerology. Has that come up in Combat Coven, or is there are there people that lean that way in your Combat Coven group?
Oh, so go ahead, Shae. You've seen some people. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people come in and out, and I've seen a lot of people say, "Hey guys, don't forget to put your moon water out." But no, there's a lot of people that say, we've got the new moon coming up. And I'll be honest, I am not super proficient in astrology or numerology, but I have seen some posts here and there where people say, well, if you're wanting to learn more about either of these branches, here's a good link to follow. I've seen some people say we're coming into a Virgo moon, and I'm really just throwing words out there. Please take what I'm about to say with like a grain of sand, but like we're going into a Virgo moon and an Aries sun. And I do love that they're just so open in the group about all of these things and willing to share about it. And because I'm interested in it, it's not something that I've specifically come across. I've dabbled a little bit more in numerology as far as like the tarot cards come into play for what I've been doing. But again, I am by no means an expert in either of those.
It's I've just been I'll be scrolling and there's a few numerologist healers, like, and I'm like, you're on something, like, that you
Yes.
are tapped in. And then there's other people that I'm like scrolling and I'm like, yeah, maybe, but like that could happen. But like, it's cool, kind of like what you ladies are doing and other folks, is like, you are claiming a space. Like, you're like, nope, actually we do deserve to be here, and we're gonna make this a safe community. Because F all that, like you said, the destruction, the death cult, people are just like,
Yeah.
I'm out. And I wouldn't be surprised if in the next few years you continue to see more people come your way and leave Abrahamic faith just because look how messy it's gotten just in the last few days. And, maybe if you just put your moon water out, or if you just like gardened more and you weren't in the phase of destruction, um, and
Right.
in a place of creation, then maybe we could have something a bit more beautiful. And that's why I love that. That's why I was drawn to speaking with y'all, because y'all are creators. Y'all are life bringers, and not love and light in the soft way. I know you said that, Angie, but in like the the way of moving and shifting energy. And I really want to thank y'all for that. It's very important.
Are we allowed to swear on your podcast?
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
surprised I made
I
it this
wanted to
far.
ask before I said it, but I like to think of it as do no harm, but take no shit.
Hmm. Yeah. And see, I bring in the words of Erica Badu, that this tea and this incense can turn into a Colt 45 and a Newport. So it's like we could,
Pretty good.
and it's like that. Do no harm, whatever. But hey, we got you. So yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing the group grow. I truly am, and I um would like to see, because as far as I know, and nobody has told me otherwise, but the Navy took away the Earth-centered services at boot camp. And I'm still trying to figure out what do we need to do to bring it back. And I have my suspicions on why you took it away, because when I was there in 2014, we started very small. Then by the halfway point of boot camp, we're just all crammed into Earth-centered services. It grew.
Did.
And it wasn't growing just because people want to get out the compartment, because we're in there lighting
Mm.
candles and chanting. So something was happening that was bringing people there. And maybe it's because it's just a different kind of way of handling things. I don't know, but I would like to see that come back, because that's not fair
Yeah.
to exclude us.
So from
No,
what I
and
know
I'll.
about the
Hmm.
policy aspect of things, another part of my background, I've worked for the last, off and on the last, I'd say 10 years, I've been in politics. I've worked in Congress and I've worked for the Biden administration before my sabbatical, as you could say. And so I think what is going to end up happening is it does not, I don't think this is going to take an act of Congress. Would an act of Congress be helpful? Absolutely. But I think this is going to come down to a DoD rule change. And I think that's what happened is you saw either a Department of the Navy or a Department of Defense rule change to remove that service. And I think it's just going to come down to getting someone in there that is going to agree that this space is beneficial for service members and here's how we can run it. As far as like allocating resources to religions in the military, I think that law already exists. It's just going to come down to whoever is in that seat to say, okay, well, this is how we kickstart it back to life. So I don't foresee that happening anytime soon, unfortunately.
No, and I'll tell you from the military chaplains I've talked to, you're right. They're definitely streamline. Hexa said he's streamlining faith codes down from 200, which was what the DoD recognized, I think, in 2017. It was like 221 to 34. So, I mean, that's like, I'm going to tell you, it's going to be the faiths that will be recognized will be Republican voting faiths. How about that? Like, is what I heard. And people are real upset. Something else that is both concerning and good, however you want to take it, is working with the Quaker House out of North Carolina. The Quaker House, because they're pacifists, they consciously object, but they also help with conscious objection from the military. And they were talking about how it's just been like a record high year of people trying, like people that were already in and trying to get out now, and can I, consciously. And they said it used to be kind of like your ease, your low ease, but it's like it's ease, and then officers can resign. They have a different process, but he said officers won't call for exit or discharge paperwork because they don't need to, but they'll call for moral injury resources. And so it's interesting to see, like, whether it's like women coming to something like Combat Coven or getting more in touch with their earthbound faiths, or men just recognizing, you know what, I think this thing is dangerous. I don't think this is what I signed up for. It'll be interesting in the next few years to see how it shapes. But in the meantime, like you said, now you have the most loyal who are there in a death cult in the military with the flag, with God, and they're dangerous.
Very much so.
And very dangerous. And thank you. I feel like, but y'all get it. Like I'm like, well, I'm like, you understand? Like these are very
We
dangerous
get it.
people, and they're like, oh, he's just a drunk. And I'm like, no.
I think he is educated enough to know exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about you? I'm so glad you brought up the chaos, because I wrote my master's thesis and then I'm writing a book on this. But he showed up to Princeton and firmly was like, I'm here to be an agent of chaos. I'm going to revive Christianity on campus. He started a little men's Christian group called the God Squad. Took over the conservative newspaper that was on the college newspaper, and I don't even want to go down a rabbit, but he studied it. This is what he praised. This is his, and it's hard to get to people. It's hard to get to see like people to see that. So thank you for knowing how deep this goes and recognizing and acknowledging it. For me, I feel validated. Like for the past few days, I've been like, no, this guy's crazy.
He's
And I'm
crazy.
like, no.
Yeah.
No, he
I
is.
think it's absurd to say that you're bringing back Christianity to college campuses when it never left.
Never left.
Oh, right.
It's been there the whole time.
And especially in the Bible Belt. Again, like I said, you from Oklahoma, I'm from North
Yes.
Carolina. We're going to do church. Even if you don't do church, you will do church.
Right. Well, wow. We have covered so much today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Um, I either one of you, how what's the best way to get involved with Combat Coven? And are y'all doing any sort of live or meetups at current?
We don't have anything like that, but the best thing is just jump in the Facebook group. Just search Combat Coven. It pops up. One thing that I'm going to be doing more of is, again, the teaching style, because it's been a word spoken to me that is just like, I am a teacher. I mean, and that doesn't mean back in the classroom, even though I was never in. I was a dance and acting teacher. I can't run from teaching. It's in me. And and it's, I'm challenging myself to go ahead and just show people they have these gifts. You can learn to do this. Don't worry that somebody else can conjure up something, and don't worry if you don't do what I do. That's fine. But let me teach you what you can do, mainly again, to protect yourself, to reconnect with your ancestors, to just reconnect culturally is something that I call them Mama Europe's children. As we say, we're Mama Africa's children, Mama Europe's children. Always have to remind them, they beat the Christianity out of your ancestors. It's just, they beat y'all so long ago that you don't even remember, because it's barely in the history books. There is no way that a faith that comes out of Central Asia and out of parts of East Africa makes its way to Europe without death, doom, destruction, bloodshed. So if you know you're Italian, you know you're Irish, you know you're Swedish, you know what you know, why don't you find out what was being practiced there before they came and beat the living daylights out of your ancient ancestors and converted them so long ago? And that's what I encourage them to do, because I'm like, there's some beautiful, I guess the proper word is indigenous Europeans, like before Christianity came to Europe. There's some amazing things that I've even been learning about, where I'm like, yo, if y'all don't reclaim your shit, get your stuff back, reclaim it, get it back. Especially the Italians and the Irish. They got a lot of beautiful things. And the Eastern Europeans, get your stuff back.
Absolutely. And about a few months ago, I live in Montana. I'm from Texas, so totally familiar with the South and the Bible Belt. But now up here in Montana, I really have been engaging a lot more with Indigenous women's history and Western women's history, just like out here in the West, and frontier women's history, I think is the proper term. But and my mom works in women's health, and we've had lots of long conversations about the rural European settlers that came over, made it out here. They didn't want the New Yorks, they didn't want the Bostons, they wanted to keep going. and so how, you know, you have the stomping out of the indigenous practices and motherhood and child rearing and family. But then, like, I mean, up until like the 1500s, like, or no, since the 14, in between that, doulas. I mean, you went to school to be a doula or a midwife or um, so many different ways that motherhood and and so I try to like tell folks that too. I'm like, y'all, that Europe, that what you were saying, Mama Europe, um,
Hmm.
she was harmed too. Like this whole blending of whiteness, like you have forgotten your own culture.
Hmm.
And Swedish, Scandinavian, we have a lot of that here, and it always winds up. So I like start with that. I'm like, here's what indigenous women might have done. Here's what a lot of the European settlers to Montana would have done. And then here's how the all male, all white, all Christian American Medical Association came and wrecked all of that for all of us.
Yes,
And people are like, yeah. I'm
they did
like,
it. And it
uh,
was done down south too with that, with the grannies, you know,
Yeah.
wiped out the grannies. So, Combat Coven's going to be that place where you can learn, but also
Mm.
understand that you're okay to still be in the military and conjure on the side, do what you got to do. And what I would love to see it grow to is that, again, the military, that's a big bear to fight. And tell you the truth, sometimes I'm not too interested in fighting a big bear. I'm more interested in, like, you want to be a big mean bear over there? Go over there. Why don't we set you up someplace? Again, like, I'm very familiar with Fort Bragg. So it's kind of like, all right, if Fort Bragg doesn't put something on the base for you, guess what? Go out in town in Fayetteville. You want to
Mm.
have just a meetup of all the pagans and all the hoodoos and the voodoos, and y'all go to main event. That's like a little hangout spot. It's just over there by the mall. And you want to go play some games and talk and hang out and have your community. Go ahead. If you want to be able, I would love to see it become a place where you can network with one another, where even it gets to the point of, hey, I just moved into my new house and I'm at Fort Sam Houston. We got our new home. Can somebody come bless it? And somebody's going to come through and come Combat Coven who's in that area and do what they do. From a distance, I've helped cleanse somebody's house. So it would be nice to grow it to the point where no matter where you're stationed, you can look in the Combat Coven and say, can you bless my house? Or my wife's just had a baby, or I've just had a baby. And can you come over and do the ceremony, the ritual, or whatever? So that's what I'd love to see happen.
yeah, that is so special. Oh, that is what I wish for you guys. For you to find
Except,
the people that find the people that are looking for you, because it's going to be a very strong and supportive community that you've built through Combat Coven. Shae, is there? I know that Angela gave her last little spiel. Do you have anything to say before we wrap up? Any
what do you
last
see with the
words?
group? Come on, tell us.
Yeah, whatever you want to see in the group, please come. We are accepting to all walks of life. You don't have to be active duty today. You can have been a veteran. You can be um, just starting off, or you could be well into practitioner. It we're open to everybody, and for the like every time someone posts something new that no one's really heard much about, I've not seen anyone really be hateful or even push back against it. A lot of people are like, oh, that's really interesting. It's interesting how you do that. Can you tell me more about it? And I know that I have even gone to Angela when I wanted to buy brick dust from New Orleans when I was there. I texted
You
you
sure
and I was
did.
like, hey, am I allowed to do this? Is this part of the culture? Because like I want to be respectful as well. And she was so kind and so helpful with the whole, and she gave me the entire breakdown of it. And I think that's one of the favorite things that I love about Angela as a person, but also about the group is that, hey, I have this question. I know that Sage is becoming a lot more
Hmm.
protected. Am I still okay to use it? There are plenty of people outside of myself that are more than willing to provide these answers and to help people grow and learn where they're at. Join. We're all really cool over here. Sometimes
Even
we
when
make
I,
cookies.
look, even when I got to get on some of y'all in that group, I
Yes.
do it in a very motherly, loving way of
Mm.
saying, as we, the saying goes, you're going to find out the fat meat greasy. And I'm trying to help you understand that fat meat greasy without you finding out fat meat greasy. Okay. So there's some people I've had to, don't you do that. Reel it back in. Don't do that. I've had to tell people there are certain gods and goddesses you do not need to conjure up and work with, because their temples are still standing till this day. Did you make them an offering before you asked them for something? You did not. And that's why you had all that chaos happen. Now go apologize. So
Go apologize.
apologize.
Sorry, it's not funny, but it's
go tell that goddess whose temple is still standing in Greece right now, you are sorry for asking without giving. So, it's a learning group, but also it's a group like Shae was saying, we are here to, even with environmental things, to understand where, hey, we don't want to over harvest something, but here's the alternative. We want to be mindful of those things too.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, y'all have been fantastic guests. This. I really am excited for this one, and listeners, I hope that y'all liked this podcast and chat too, because Angela and Shae of Combat Coven, military veterans, badass women. Thank you for being here,
and thanks for having us. This was awesome.
Thank you so much for having us. This was incredible. What an opportunity.
For sure. Alrighty, folks. Well, make sure you tell me in the comments what you think. Did you learn a lot? Are you interested in something that one of the ladies brought up today? Let me know. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe. You know the drill. Other than that, I'll see y'all next time on Follow the Leader. Bye-bye.